Hi guys, Jeremy Solt here with Banana Hobby, and what I got for you is the brand new J-20 Mighty Dragon from FlyFans. Check this thing out, it's going to be awesome. This is the tester version that you see right here, and this is the production version, and what you're going to see is the unboxing of the production version, which you guys are going to get right at bananahobby.com. Check it out. Alright guys, so the J-20B, here are the specs of the airplane. You've got a wingspan 37 inches. You've got a fuselage length of 60 inches. It's got dual 70mm EDFs inside there that are a 2000 kV motor system, dual 80 amp ESCs with thrust reversing, and then we recommend that you go from a 5,000 to like a 6,200 milliamp hour pack inside this airplane and nothing more than that. Know that the higher you go in milliamp hour packs, you're going to end up being more nose heavy on there. But does it fly fine? It does, absolutely. So I fly in a 5,000 pack, but we've also been flying them on 6,200 batteries also. With a 5,000 pack, you definitely got to be landing by about 230 on there. So again, everybody's batteries are all their own different brands and different shapes and different conditions. So I'd always start this airplane around a 230 flight, get it on the ground by 230, and then see what your batteries are at, check them. And if you've got more time on there, you can increase it as you want. But the more you power this airplane, the more consumption is going to absolutely take on there. And so you're going to fly this thing like a boss, you're going to have shorter flight times. But if you have a good happy medium on there, you should get some decent flight times on there. Close to about 3 minutes on there if you are conservative and do well when you don't need power. But again, always fly this airplane. Start it off in a 230 pack on there. See where your battery's at. Put about 4 of them through there so you can actually see like a consistent basis of what your batteries are, and then go from there. This airplane does highlight its own internal gyro. We put a lot of testing in this gyro. The gyro is awesome. And now you're going to get a different system than any of the other ones that have already been produced. This is the one that we have through Banana Hobby, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then we also have another option on there that you'll hear me highlight this a lot, but it has a system in there that is programmed through your flat channel, and it's called ground brakes. Make sure that you do not activate them in flight. If you activate them in flight, you are going to have a very interesting situation at your hands. Because what happens is it's intended for ground use only. After you've already semi-slowed down the airplane, you apply it for that scale look. You get your canards vectored up, your ailerons go up, your flaps go down, and it actually still allows you to have steering on there. But again, it's used to slow you down. And it's mainly just for looks. It has zero intention for flight characteristic. So do not use it in flight. There's your warning on there. So that being said, we went through the specs on this airplane. They are all right here. Awesome setup. And now we're going to do the unboxing, where we're going to speed through it as fast as we can. And then we will do a quick assembly and a quick setup on this airplane. And there you go. Alright guys, you just got to see the unboxing. We did a speed trial through there so that, okay, start X and then start it over. Alright guys, that was our unboxing. Quick for the time lapse on there to save you guys some time so we can spend it on the meat and potatoes, which is the assembly of this airplane. So again, you get all your pieces in there. You get this really beautiful fuselage that FlyFans did a fantastic job on. Great production of this airplane. All nice. You got some neat looking doors. You got some landing gear that we'll show you here in a minute. You got your dual 70mm setup in the back. You got cheater vents in the top and bottom, so this thing has enough air to be able to move this thing through the air at some great speeds. You get your canopy hatch, your canard connections. And then a neat thing about this is that you've got horizontal stabs on this airplane that are a full flying stab. And so what happens is you put this pin down into the hole, you tighten it with a 1.5mm hex, and then it's actually got a slotted groove system in there that the servo has a pin on to allow for the movement of the surface, which is really cool. So you got that. You also have your wings. Your wings are a delta wing system on this airplane, so they're really not that large. You know, I mean, the heck, the airplane, like I said, is 37-inch wingspan, but the surfaces will move together on this airplane like a delta wing normally does, and then you have your canards on there too to help with the assistance of the flight controls. So on this wing, you will have 3 connections. One is your light, one is the inner, which is considered aileron, and the other one is not marked, but it is the flap, even though this does not have flaps. So that'll go on here shortly. And then you also have your canards, and the canards will just go onto the actual shaft that they have with a screw that goes inside there, and I believe that is a 2mm screw, and we will get those all going here very shortly. And then the setup is just super simple on this airplane, so we're going to knock it out real quick. I'm going to pause. We're going to get this airplane fuselage on a stand so that we can actually work it. Alright guys, we got it on the stand now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install your carbon spar through the airplane. That way we can start with getting the wings on. So remember, like I said, you've got your 3 connections in there. You're going to want to use some forceps or some needle nose or something to get them actually out of the wing. They have them taped over so that when they paint the airplane, it does not affect any of the pins. And so we're going to pull these out one by one. And then we're going to slide the left wing on. Nice and easy. They are labeled. And just make sure you get your polarities right. Light connection went back inside, so I had to grab that back out. Again, make sure your polarities are right. Everything's pushed in and connected. And then slide them all back into the cavity. Nice and easy. Stacking your wires inside there. And your labels. And then sure that your wing connection goes in, and then you'll secure it with that 2mm screw in there. So I'm going to flip this over and we're going to do the other side just the same, except we're just on this side of the table. And again, this is all the basic stuff that everybody already knows how to do, is connecting up wings. There are a few that somehow need that help, so hopefully this video helps with that. Alright, so it says channel 1 on there, but if you use Spectrum, it is not channel 1. That is aileron. These are based upon a Futaba type based connection. So when it says channel 1, that should be your aileron. This is channel 6. That'll be your flap, which we know. And again, like I said, this does not have flaps. They're entwined together, but the position of the airplane actually represents a flap. Everybody knows that. All right, so we're getting these all tucked back in. Slide this other wing back on, nice and easy. Okay, like I said, you're gonna have a baggie full of screws. I usually just tear the bag, dump them all out, and then work them that way. Again, advisory, I am using a drill on here for the sake of doing things quick. I do not recommend using the drill, because whenever I get these screws semi-tight, I stop and I use the drill like a screwdriver. Okay, so just make sure your wings are pressed in there all the way they need to be, all the way tight. That way the alignment of the brass fitting inside the screw anchor point is aligned. Again, if you happen to somehow use a drill, use your hand to tighten it. Again, you do not want to over tighten any of these mounts. They are plastic and they will break if you end up going too much on anything. The other thing is, do not use Loctite on anything around plastic. Loctite does degrade plastic, and that is 100% a potential for a failure if you end up doing that. Okay, while we have this airplane upside down, we're going to actually add the canards onto the airplane. I'm going to grab them through the front here. All right, so on this, you've got your hole on the bottom, and then you got a hole on the shaft. And all you're going to do is slide this on. And you're going to put your screw in. Okay, that one's tight. We'll reach over the airplane and we'll put this one on. There should be one extra screw in there in case you screw something up. Do I not have the alignment right? Oh, you have to start. Okay, you might need to grab onto that shaft and pull it out just a little bit, because without the canard on there, you could actually push that metal in like I just did right there. This should get the proper alignment. Again, I get close and then tighten hand tight. Okay, so there's your canards and your wings, that easy. Now, like I said, there's another fun part about this airplane is those stabs, with them having that ball bearing type pin on there. You got to put them on a little bit different. So with that 1.5 screw, you've got a set screw that is down inside the hole. So if you look at down here, you've got a screw hole, another screw hole for the actual plastic bracketing on this. And then you got a drilled out like hole. That is where the 1.5 goes in. With this, making sure that your labels are on the outside, you just slide them all the way in. Pop it into place. Find that set screw, and actually we're going to switch it out with this one. You're going to find that set screw. All you're going to do is tighten it. Making sure that your horizontal is or your vertical is actually on the pin. So you got that slot groove on there, and that pin has to go right on it so that it actually has the channel, making sure it goes in there. So that one's on there nice and easy. Now we do the other side. Okay. Finding our set screw. Now how tight is too tight? Like I said, you just need to snug these things on there so they're not going to wiggle out. If you He-Man this thing, and you break it, I feel bad for you, but that's going to be a mess. So that's pretty easy. Last thing we install on is the nose cone. The nose cone is magneted. I have found, here's a little advisory that I found, is that I find myself grabbing onto the nose cone when I try to lift this airplane. So I would suggest you put a little dab of glue in here, so you don't grab onto the airplane like I have, and then it goes boop, and the nose comes off, and you try and scramble to prevent the airplane from hitting the ground. So I suggest putting a dab of glue on here so that this doesn't come off. If you have any type of rubber cement type glue, just a little dab should do, but you just want to try and prevent that from coming off. But if you plan on transporting on there, just be very wary, it does come off. Okay. All right, so that concludes the actual assembly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change positions on here. We're going to show the internal of the bay, and then we'll show you the setup on there. So stay tuned for the next. All right, guys, we've got our receiver bound up. I am going to use an orange RX for the time being, just for the setup, since my Spectrum receiver is not working. I don't know why. But anyway, I also want to apologize. I do not have my mic on anymore. It died, and so you're gonna probably hear me a little different on here, so hopefully it works out. So what we're gonna do is, you got a pretty open bay inside here. I want to make sure you guys know you need a Y cable that'll connect up to the 2 yellow wires in the back. Those are going to be for your thrust reversing channel. The other thing that you're going to need is your receiver, and I think it's an 8 channel, but I have plugged in my throttle just so that I could get it bound. And then if you are not using Spectrum, or sorry, Futaba, if you are not using Futaba, then do not use these channel identifiers. They mean nothing except for the name. So the name represents what you've got to do. So they have them based on like a Futaba type setting in there. So this one says aileron, so it's going to go into aileron, making sure the respective polarity. And we got elevator. And then we've got rudder. Landing gear, I believe. Yep, landing gear. And then you've got flap next. Again, like I've said a million times, it is not flaps. It says flap, but they are actually ground brakes, only used on the ground. And then you've got channel or mode switch. We're gonna put that out in 3. And we're going to do thrust reversing on auxiliary 2. And so I'm using 8 channels right now on there. You will also see 2 extra wires back here. These are for brakes. If you were to purchase brakes to be able to add into this airplane, you'd add a brake controller up here and then attach the brakes in the back. And so the neat thing is that they actually hardwired wires for your brakes already throughout the airplane, so it's already there. So if you chose to do that, pretty neat setup on there. All right, so I'm going to tuck this receiver back here in the back to get it out of the way so that we can see what we need to see back here. And then we're going to power on the airplane. You are going to need to do a throttle cal on this airplane. Now what you're going to do is, on the back of these rows is where your throttle is located. One side for one motor, the other for the other motor, okay? So that connection in the back, you need to independently do the throttle cal on these. Why? And the reason why is because this power bank, when it powers up, what happens is you got about a second delay between the power going to this side versus the other side. And so when you try to do a throttle cal together, one will cal, the other one won't. So you need to make sure you disconnect and do one, and then disconnect and do the other, and then you're calibrated. So just make sure you know that. That's something that we had just realized on there. So that being said, we're going to show you that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the back one here. So where you have got that throttle disconnected, I have throttle turned up. We're going to connect.
10.
And then bring it back down.
Timer reset.
Okay, and then that'll initialize. Good to go there. Okay, so now we're going to disconnect again. We're going to plug this side back in. Now we're going to undo the other side. Disconnected there. Throttle is turned back up again. And then bringing it back down. And now it's initialized there. Okay, both of them initialized and good to go. Now, what you're going to do is reconnect your throttle again back into the back spot. And now is when we get into the actual setup of the airplane. Okay, so we're going to plug this back in. All right, so now that the airplane is together, we don't need to see the battery. You got all your connections in there. And so now you should be able to check your surfaces and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to. Okay, so you got nose up, nose down, left and right, and left and right. And so we've actually got a surface that is different than the other. And so we're going to go into our airplane. And we're going to flip the elevator and we're going to flip aileron. And that's going to change what did. So now we got left, now we got right, now we got nose up, now we got nose down, now we got left rudder, now we got right rudder. And there we go. So now the airplane just needs to get tuned to the liking of what we want for this airplane to be neutral state. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the verticals, which are the rudders. And what you're going to need is you're going to need a setup like this. This right here is just a little mini micro jeweler's type flathead screwdriver. That flathead or gyro type screwdriver that you probably gained in a couple of different airplanes or gyros in the past. But essentially what you're going to do is you've got an adjustment on there. This adjustment is right in here. You got the two potentiometers, you got left side and right side, and then you've got a button within here. This button is what changes a couple of modes in there, and you will be able to adjust that here, and I'll show you what that means. So with the airplane in this state that it is, I'm going to reach in and I'm going to go to those potentiometers. And if you look, when I twist that potentiometer, it allows me to do a fine-tune adjust. And so I'm going to get it to where I like it. Then we go to the other side. Making sure I get onto the potentiometer. And then you just fine tune it and move it to where you want it to go. And there you go. And then you have that rudder done. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to just manually adjust your canards to where you want, or we can sub trim it and see what it does. We're going to turn this airplane around so you can see the side now. And so, what you want is you want this horizontal surface to be with the line right here. I'll show you that real quick, what I'm talking about. So what we want to do is I'm going to go into my radio. I'm going to go into sub trim. I'm going to go to elevator, and I'm going to grab this slider, and I'm going to adjust it to where I want it to be. And I want it to be pretty much right with that line right there. Okay? And we'll check the other side in just a second. And then the canard up here in the front, you want it to be like 1/8 of an inch taller than that surface right there. So that is like dead perfect right there for a good starting point for this airplane. Okay, now we're going to rotate this airplane around some more. We're going to look at it from the behind here. All right. And now we're just going to make sure that that side and this side are even. Okay, so they are off just a little bit. It's a little bit higher on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in to my sub trim. I'm going to go to the ailerons, and I'm just going to adjust that out a little bit. Okay, and try and get them to where they're pretty close to being even. Okay, so that one's up just a little bit above, and that one's now down. Okay, so now I'm going to bring that back up just a little bit by adjusting the aileron sub trim. And now they are just about even. That is a good start point for this airplane. Right there, nice and easy. So now we look up, look at those canards. They look like they're definitely off. Well, now we gotta go in and manually adjust that canard so that it is where it needs to be. Now, what do I mean by manually adjust that canard? I'm gonna show you down in here. All right, so I'm gonna move that receiver back out of the way. But what you've got is you've got your servo here and your servo there. Let's get these wires a little bit contained. Show you this. So you got your two servos. You got one here and one there. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna manually adjust these until the canards are where we want them to be. Okay, and so what you do is you can pop off the servo arm here and then twist it, or you can undo the screw on the side here. To me, it's easier to just undo the servo arm. And so what we're gonna do is I'm going to grab a little Phillips screwdriver to be able to do this. And the one that's the furthest out seems to be this one right here. And so we want to extend it out just a little bit and try and clean that up. The other thing that we can try and do is see if we can get it to a different tooth. We're just going to reach in here and get that horn off of there. See if we can get a different tooth on there so that it mimics this other side. And look right there. Just by moving that one tooth over that was off slightly, now we are just about dead even with the other one. So it just needed a tooth slip right there. So now I'm tightening up the screw. And now the canards should be pretty dang even. There you go. Just about even on there. Now, if they're not perfectly even, okay, if they're not perfectly even, it's really not going to matter too much because your airplane, you're going to, in the air, you're going to trim it all. And all of these are going to have whatever that airplane likes for your flight characteristic and your adjusted trims. So you're going to be slightly off. So you want to start them as close as you can and then adjust them as you need after your first flight on there. Pretty easy on there. But super simple setup. So again, there you go. There's your connections on there. Your left side, your right side, your servos are all right there. And then you match that. Make sure that your back surfaces over there are even, nice and easy. And then let's zoom out real quick. Let's give another look at what these surfaces are supposed to do on this airplane. All right, so here we go. We're gonna drop this down. All right, so you got nose up, your back surfaces go vertical, and your canards move as if your hand is in the wind hanging out of the car and lift the nose up. Down, your canards go nose down, and your back surfaces go down also. Then you got left, and then you got right. Nice and easy. Should do pretty dang awesome. Then you got your rudder, and they're supposed to do their own thing. Okay, now we're gonna go back to that controller, and I'm just gonna show you the controller that I have in my hand here that we're adding into our other aircraft. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you the doors now. So again, this controller, it has a button within this circle right here. And this circle button gets you into what you guys have probably seen is the spaz mode and a couple of other things on there. And so we're gonna hurry and bring down the gear so that we can show you this next setup. So I'm just gonna cycle the gear. Here comes that landing gear. And the doors should close, nice and easy. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm gonna go into the bay And we're going to show you these. You got to have this view right here. Okay, so if you can see, this door doesn't seem all the way closed. It's close. It's not all the way closed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in there, we're going to push that button that we have in there, and you're going to see the airplane go into what we call that spaz mode. And so now, I'm going to move these. Move the receiver back out of the way. So now I'm going to press that button. By pressing this first button, you will see the airplane go into all of the surfaces moving, or the spaz mode. This is how you can check all your surfaces and make sure your servos are all working before you fly, and that they've got the range, there's no hanging up or any of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a neat little addition on there. So now I'm pressing that button for a second time. What that does is, if you remember, we talked about these potentiometers inside here working for the verticals. Well, now when you go into the second mode option, they are now the adjustment for your main landing gear doors. And so I'm going to go into this main landing gear door setting, which I'm already there. And now I'm going to go to the potentiometer for this right door. And I'm trying to make sure I don't short anything out by touching anything I'm not supposed to. All right, so if you look, that door is now adjusting. There you go. All right. So it's important that what you do is you get your screwdriver onto that set screw, or the potentiometer. Okay. And you just kind of hang out there for a second, and then you cycle your gear. You watch where that gear door goes, and you just make sure that it's fully open and clear. Okay. Still on the set, still on the screw. See if you look, still on there. So I'm going to make sure that that door closes all the way, and then I'm going to hit the cycle again, and I'm going to make sure that that potentiometer where I have it has cleared the door, or the main landing gear door. So that main landing gear and the door servo is now adjusted to where it doesn't hit the door or the wheel when it goes through, but yet it also closes all the way up. So now we're going to jump to the other side and do the exact same thing. Okay, we're just making sure that it's got the range that it needs. Now, is this an endpoint to endpoint adjustment? The answer is no. What you're doing is it's almost like a sub trim, to where you're finding the happy medium between the door closing and the door being open. So I'm on the other potentiometer now. And why would you say, hey Jeremy, why don't you just tighten it to where the door always goes tight? So I kind of adjust it to where the door goes tight, keeping the screwdriver on there, and then I make sure again that gear does not get interfered with by that door. Okay. Now let me show you what happens if you have it too much. So let's go. We're gonna go close, and now I'm gonna continue that turn. Okay, now watch this. So I've turned that turn almost a quarter turn too much. And now the door effectively can be adjusted to where now you're gonna snag your door or your landing gear. And so again, what I try to do is I try to go tight, make sure it's fully tight, cycle the gear, make sure it's clear, and make sure that it closes. And if it closes all the way, you are set. Perfect setup on there. Nice, good to go. Beautiful landing gear there. All right, let's get this landing gear back in. One more check. All right, bring that landing gear out because we're going to actually keep it out so we can show this airplane on the ground. There we go. We got the nose landing gear coming out. it looks really, really good. All right, so now the next step on this is rates. Let me raise this back up and we'll show you what we got for rates. All right, so we found this airplane is a really, really fast airplane, and so you don't need to have crazy rates on this airplane. But we're going to show you exactly where we have and where we like this airplane. And so, again, I'm not touting Spectrum or saying you need to use Spectrum, but it's a good reference and it's what I use. And so these numbers are based upon a percentage at the rate of the servo being max travel, -100, full travel, +100. That is where we're at, 100% travel. All right, so here we go. These are my settings on there. I got aileron sitting at 45% for my low rate.
Aileron's medium rate.
50%.
Aileron's high rate.
And then 80%. Or sorry, high rate.
Aileron's low rate.
So there you go, low.
Aileron's medium rate.
Medium.
Aileron's high rate.
And high. Now we're gonna go to elevator. Elevator low needs to be a little higher. Actually, I forgot I need to put some expo in this, so that needs 30 on there. I always run 30 on all of my elevators.
Elevator medium rate. Elevator low rate.
Oh, for some reason that was rudder, that's why.
Rudder high rate.
Let me adjust that real quick. I apologize, but I normally have 30 in there for everything
Rudder low rate.
on my rates.
Rudder medium rate.
All right, sorry. Let me get back to elevator. Somehow I clicked the wrong one and I went to rudder, so it confused me. All right, there we go. Like I said, there's 30 on there. All right, so for my elevator rate, low rate, 50%.
Elevator medium rate.
60%.
Elevator high rate.
70% for my rates, low, medium, and high. And so what that does is that gives you pretty good setup on there. But if you just notice, I just goofed up something in there. Let me show you what I goofed up. Let me show you that real quick. Let me show you the rudder rates. And again, my rudder rates,
Rudder low rate.
44%,
Rudder medium rate.
60 for my medium,
Rudder high rate.
and then high rate 100. There's a lot of people that just like to run 100% and do whatever. Okay, these are my recommendations. If you like them, great. If you don't like them,
Rudder
great.
low rate.
You know, there's nothing says that you have to have that. Okay, so what I did as a goof up is I'm still in this landing gear programming. I forgot to get out of that. And so if you look in that programming mode, you got nothing.
Elevator low rate.
Okay, so that button we talked about, you need to go and press that button again and it gets you out of that. So here we go. I'm gonna go in there and hit that button. Okay. Now we have all of our stuff on there. Now I need to go in here and I need to make sure that my rudder is where we need to be because I just changed some things. So we were off a little bit on there. And again, what I recommend for the rudder is to get it close right now, right? But you're still gonna need to go and you need to figure out your nozzle steering. So go out there and taxi your airplane, figure out where your airplane trides true in taxiing, and then with your screwdriver, go in there and adjust your verts to match. So you don't have to change any linkages or anything like that. You just adjust your steering to what you need to be, just through sub trim or trimming, whatever you feel. And then you go in and adjust your verts to equal that too. All right, so validating everything.
Rudder high rate.
Nozzle steering, elevator up, elevator down, left side, right side. Elevator rates. High, aileron rates, high, and so this is high elevator and high aileron to equal the spaz mode is what I call it.
Aileron rudder low rate.
And then you get that.
Low rate.
The next thing that we need to talk about is I need to verify that I have a mode switch on here. We're going to check real quick. So I'm going to set up a mode switch for spot 8. So I got to go into my channel assign and assign channel 8 as a
Gyro auto level.
is a switch. Alright, so that is auxiliary. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Auxiliary 8, I think. And gear. Let's see, gear, flaps. Thrust reverse. Okay, yep, there we go. All right, so I'm going to assign it to switch B over here. That way we have some adjustable options. Okay. All right, so we should see some color changes in this gyro. And we'll check this out. So we got off, and then we got on. And so on, off, and off. So you have off and on for your gyro. Wanted to make sure that was all the same as what we wanted them to do. All right, so with this airplane, it's going to be hard to tell right here, guys. But with off, in the off position, you get nothing doing anything. Now the switch goes on, and you should have to where whatever you do at the airplane should react opposite or tell it to do that. So when you're rolling to the left, the airplane should counter to the right. And that is doing that in here. For the nose lifting up, the tail should go back. And if the nose goes down, you should be trying to lift the nose up. And it's doing so. Same for the rudder over there. So the gyro on this airplane is actually a very minimal amount gyro. And the reason why is because we were getting this airplane to some ridiculous amounts of speed, and therefore we could find that we could get this airplane to wiggle at those maximum speeds. So we had them turn down the gyros to make sure that we were not going to have any of that. And so finding that that airplane flew very well with minimal gyro, and let alone off, is also good. The airplane gyro system in here is absolutely amazing, and it works out well. And so there you go. I think we got everything covered on this airplane. It should be ready to go. If for some reason, and we'll take a look at it. If for some reason your surfaces are not matching, make sure the wheel doesn't go off, matching on the back side here, you always can undo the ball joint and make sure they're good. So you just want to make sure it's straight across, all the way across here on this back surface. You want to make sure your rudders or your verticals are all even with the leading edge of here. Okay, and then your canards are up just slightly above the front up there. And that should do great. All right, guys, if you happen to need to turn on your thrust reversing, you will need to do a couple of different things on there. And this is going to be a quick instructional to help you out with that. Now, what I do is you're going to need to separate each one of the sides. You need to do each program at a separate time. That way you can hear the beeps that are going on so that you can actually react to them. And so I've already done it on the one side over here on the left. But the other side, if you look at the controller, I'm talking about these two connections. One is the one motor, the other is the other motor. Okay? And so what we're going to do is we've unplugged the one over here on the right, so we've done this one. Now we're actually doing the other side real quick.
Remaining 2 minutes.
And so disregard that sound. Anyway, so what we're going to do is you got to start with your throttle up. And you'll see the throttle right here. Throttle starts up. What's going to happen is that's going to get you into the menu, same as when you have to reprogram your ESCs to your throttle, where you hold it up and let it do its thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn that throttle up and get into the menu. Once you're in the menu, you're going to hear or wait for the single beep. That is brake type. At that point, you're going to bring your throttle down and set it there. You're going to eventually get to a second set of beeps. That second set of beeps, once they reach the 3 beeps, you're going to bring your throttle back up to accept. When it accepts, you will hear a little noise or whatever it is. at that point, you're able to bring the throttle back down, and that'll take you out of that menu. And so I'm going to show you how it is now that I've explained it to you, and then we'll go from there. So the throttle is up. And keep my hand on the throttle. There's the menu. That's the first beep. Now we're going to bring it down. Okay. Now we're getting into the menus. One beep. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. All the way up. You hear the rattle. Now we can bring it back down to get out. Now it's initializing. And now we should have thrust reversing. We're going to put it over here so we can see. So here we go. We're going to throttle up. I've got one direction. See the cheater valve? The cheater vent opens when you're going the regular way, but going the opposite way, it doesn't. So there we go. We have thrust reversing. So now, within your radio, depending on where your switch is, so this right here, I have it to where thrust on, or thrust reversing on, thrust reversing off. So respectively, you need to make that switch or channel that you have assigned to that into which direction you want. So if you want it to go opposite or whatever, you do that. So with this one, it is the wrong direction. So I'm going to go into my channel assigned. I'm going to go to reverse. I have it as auxiliary 7. I just switched that over. Now in this position, I should see the vent open, and that side should not. And there we go. And then you need to repeat the exact same thing on the other side by plugging in your one side, undoing the other side, and then retelling it the same way that you just did. But as of right now, I've got both of these established. And so when you look at my vents, I should be thrust reversing, and I can feel the vent. And then I flip it the other way, and you can have them opening up. And there they are. So there you go. That is how you end up turning on thrust reversing on this airplane. All right, guys. So now that you've seen the whole setup of this airplane, the one thing I want to make sure that we tell you again, I've said this many times, is the ground brakes. Okay? They are only to be used during the last part of your landing to slow your airplane down a little bit more and look kind of cool. It has no real major effect on the airplane, except for if you were to activate it in the air, you're more than likely going to crash. So do not activate it in the air. And then also activate it at the very end of your landings. Again, it's just to make it look kind of cool, a little scale effect. Now, here you go. This is what it is. Essentially, it's on your flap switch. And what it does is your canards go vertical to help push the airplane down a little bit on the nose, and then your back area surfaces split, therefore making it to where you have excess drag. What do you have control of when this is activated? You have only control of your rudder actions on there. And so the airplane has the ability to still steer on the ground, and you have some rudder control on there also. But again, you don't have any aileron and you don't have any elevator effect on there. Again, it is a scale cool feature only while on the ground, to have it as something that just looks kind of neat as you're taxiing back or whatever. So again, do not apply the ground brakes in the air or you're going to probably crash it. So that is not on us at that point. But anyway, there you go. The J-20B from Banana Hobby, created by FlyFans. They did a great job on there. It's a cool airplane. And again, like what we tout, it's different. So again, I'm Jeremy with Banana Hobby. Hopefully you've enjoyed the unboxing and the setup of this airplane. And if you have any questions, let us know. But again, thanks for watching.